As autumn settles into our quiet suburban neighborhood, the thinning air carries the scent of falling leaves and something else, something far more poignant. The trees around my humble home are shedding their muted tones of orange and brown, a stark reminder of the changes that have occurred not only in nature, but also within my own family. My house is modest, showing signs of age, peeling paint and creaky floorboards, but it's well cared for. Yet, inside, it feels more like a museum of memories than a warm home filled with love. On evenings like this, I sit alone in the living room, flickering shadows dancing on the walls, cast by the soft glow of a single lamp. The walls, lined with faded photographs of family gatherings long since past, echo a silence that grows heavier with each tick of the clock. I often find my gaze lingering on an old picture of my son, Jacob, as a child, his infectious smile frozen in time. It has been years since we spoke, years since the silence began to fill the crevices of our relationship, but I cannot forget those simpler days. I think of the moments that led us here, the bitter arguments, the words that cut deeper than I ever intended. I played a role in pushing him away, burying myself in work and neglecting the very essence of fatherhood. Now, with my own regrets weighing on me, I want nothing more than to rebuild that connection. Though I fear the magnitude of the challenge ahead, knowing that some chasms might never be crossed. The golden sunlight of late afternoon has begun to give way to twilight, and I find myself standing in the kitchen, a place that had once bustled with laughter and rich smells. I cup my hands around a steaming mug of coffee, the warmth contrasting with the chill that has settled within my heart. Today, I made a choice. I would reach out to Jacob. But how? It had been too long, and the thought of stumbling over my words made my palms sweaty. I finally settled on writing a letter, something tangible that he could hold, digest on his own terms. I took a deep breath, my pen hovering over the paper, thoughts racing through my mind. What do I say after years of silence? I began, "Dear Jacob, I hope this letter finds you well. I've often thought of reaching out, and I'm sorry that I didn't sooner. The truth is, I've missed you." Tears filled my eyes as the words flowed onto the page. Each sentence felt like a weight lifted, yet the fear of his response lingered like a shadow. I sealed the letter, feeling a strange mixture of hope and dread. It was time to take that first step into uncertain territory. Days turned into weeks, and the leaves continued to fall outside, blanketing the ground in a crisp, rustling layer. I stood at the window each morning, scanning the mailbox, my heart sinking with every empty return. It occurred to me that waiting for a reply magnified the silence between us. It was a poignant reminder that while I sought to reconnect, Jacob might not be ready to respond. On evenings when the silence gripped me too tightly, I would sit with my old guitar, the one I had strummed whenever Jacob would come running in, eager to sing along. The notes felt foreign beneath my fingers, echoing the loss of him in my life. I played soft melodies, hoping they would carry my unspoken words into the universe. Then one late afternoon, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an ethereal quality over everything, I heard the soft rustle of paper against the mailbox. With a racing heart, I opened the door and stepped out hesitantly. There it was, a letter with my name on it, penned in familiar handwriting. Hope surged through me, energizing my weary legs as I grasped it tightly in my hands. I stumbled back inside, heart racing. The world around me blurred as I unfolded the letter, desperate to absorb every word. "Dear Dad, I didn't know how to respond, but I appreciate your letter. I'll admit, things have been complicated since we last spoke." The words slid into my heart with the gentle precision of truth. He wrote of his life, his struggles, and the painful memories of our fallout. He spoke of a loneliness that mirrored my own, yet the walls still remained between us, carefully constructed and reinforced over years of silence. Each sentence pulled at my heartstrings, a symphony of longing, but it left me with more questions than answers. The last line whispered a hesitance that stung. "I'm not sure I'm ready to meet yet." I stared at the paper. A mixture of disappointment and understanding washed over me. We both needed time, but I knew now that we were no longer alone in our silence, even if that felt like a small comfort in this vast emotional landscape. Days turned into weeks again, and we exchanged letters sporadically. Each one felt like a tentative step toward bridging the gap. Yet every response bore the weight of our histories, laden with regret. I often suggested meeting, coffee, a park, anywhere, but the idea seemed to loom heavily over us both. Around the neighborhood, the world continued to change with the turning seasons. As the vibrant hues of autumn gave way to the starkness of winter, I found myself struggling against the encroaching cold, both inside and out. On one particularly chilly evening, I received another letter from Jacob. Maybe I could come by this weekend. My pulse quickened. I could almost hear the tentative hope in those words. I pushed back thoughts of the awkwardness that would surely permeate our reunion. I chose instead to focus on the warmth of potential connection. The house, albeit filled with silence, felt different as the weekend approached, imbued with an anticipatory energy. Saturday arrived with a heavy fog that curled around my home, wrapping the world in a cloak of uncertainty. As the afternoon stretched on, I paced the house, wiping my hands on my jeans nervously. The hours felt like days, and finally, at 3 p.m., I heard a hesitant knock at the door. My heart raced as I opened it, and there stood Jacob, older but unmistakably him. Tall like I remembered, though a bit more rugged around the edges. He stood there for a moment, our eyes locking, and I could see remnants of the boy I once knew contained within the man he had become. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice faltering slightly. "Hey, Jacob," I replied, finding it hard to breathe. The weight of unsaid words hung between us like an invisible veil. He stepped inside, kicking away leaves caught in the soles of his shoes, and I closed the door behind him, sealing away the outside world. At a loss for conversation, I led him to the living room, where we settled onto opposite ends of the couch. The atmosphere grew thick with expectation, and I swallowed my nervousness, searching for a way to bridge the widening chasm. I cleared my throat, feeling for the gentlest words. "It's good to see you," I began. Jacob nodded, but his gaze was fixed on the family photos lining the walls. "Yeah, it's been a while." Despite our shared history weighing down our exchange, I attempted to navigate the conversation. I asked about his new job, his friends, and slowly he opened up, too, talking about his struggles and the growth he'd experienced. My heart ached at each revelation. I felt both pride and heartbreak. We laughed awkwardly at old memories. He recounted incidents where he felt I had failed him, and I attempted to explain my choices. With every word spoken, our armor began to rust, but still, resounding silence accompanied our conversations. Yet resentment clung to the air, a reminder of all the years lost. I couldn't avoid it forever. Suddenly, the vulnerability of our situation pushed me to speak out, the emotional weight of the past crashing down on me. "Jacob," I began cautiously, "I know I hurt you. If I could take back the time lost, I would. I wish I had been." "What?" he asked sharply, his eyes narrowing. "More present? More understanding?" "Yes," I confessed, agony spilling out. "I'm sorry I wasn't a better father. I thought work would secure our future, but it left us with nothing," he shot back, and the energy in the room shifted. "I need you to understand how alone I felt." Tensions simmered in the air, heated yet fragile. Once again, the silence followed as we weighed our words heavily, neither of us sure where to go next. The shadow of regret fell between us like a tangible entity, disrupting our attempts at reconciliation. It was easy to feel defeated in that moment, but in the quiet that followed, I saw vulnerability in Jacob's expression, an awareness that we were both guilty of failing in ways we hadn't realized. And slowly, like the unveiling of dawn, the tension began to ease. "I know it's hard for both of us," I admitted softly, "but I want to work on it. I want to be there for you, Jacob." A wavering sigh escaped his lips, signaling a weight lifting. "I wouldn't know where to begin," he admitted, his tone softer, vulnerability threading through his words. "What if we start with small things?" I suggested. "Lunch once a week? I can cook, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just a space to be us." Jacob contemplated for a moment, relief flooding my chest at the thought of a burgeoning hope we could nurture together. He finally nodded, the acceptance swimming in his eyes. "Okay," he said, a subtle smile breaking through. "Let's try that." Our relationship would be a slow and deliberate journey, but in that exchange, a flicker of hope ignited. As autumn slipped further into winter, weekly lunches became our sanctuary. With each shared meal, We peeled back layers and made small promises to be more honest, more open with each other. The road ahead was thick with challenges, yet as the seasons continued to change outside, bringing with it a sense of renewal, I began to feel warmth creeping back into the corners of my life. Sometimes the silences were overwhelming, echoing our past, but many times they were punctuated with laughter, warmth, and genuine effort to understand each other's hearts. Even if we would never retrieve the years lost, we were crafting new experiences together, a shared drumbeat to a song still being written. And for the first time in years, I dared to hope for more than just survival. I hoped for a future where we could truly be father and son again, with the past as a silent witness to our growth. Winter wrapped itself around the neighborhood like a snug, cold blanket, each day muted under a thick layer of frost. Evenings at home became a tapestry of steam rising from mugs of cocoa and the soft crackle of the fireplace. We continued our weekly lunches, each one a mixture of warmth and an undercurrent of nostalgia, sometimes threatening to swallow us whole with unasked questions. One afternoon, while preparing a pot of chicken noodle soup, the recipe Jacob had adored as a child, I looked through the pantry for my old cooking apron. It was tattered with age, much like the rest of me, and moments spent in its fabric reminded me of the closeness we'd once shared. I paused, the image of our young selves gathering around the table overlaying the most delicate layer of sadness on my heart. This day felt poised on the edge of something, though I couldn't identify it. The doorbell rang unexpectedly, rattling my thoughts. I dried my hands and opened the door to find Jacob standing there, holding a snow globe, a little thing that sparkled with frost and winter scenes, shimmering under the soft light. "I saw this and thought of you," he said, cheeks reddened from the chill outside, yet his eyes sparkled as if he felt the warmth of our conversations lingering in the air. "Remember when we used to collect these?" The mention of the past hesitated between us, acknowledgement that still felt fragile. "I do. We had quite the collection," I replied, accepting the snow globe with trembling hands. In that tiny sphere, I saw reflections of laughter and hope, a mirage of us, before the silence. "Do you think we could start collecting them again?" he asked, vulnerability etching his features as he let the thought linger between us. I felt an unexpected warmth spread through me. "I'd like that very much, Jacob." As the days grew shorter and the nights loomed deeper with winter, something miraculous began to sprout through our fragile conversations. The tender flickers of hope overshadowed the silence. We spent Sundays bundled up wandering through the local community center shops, sharing stories as we handpicked more tiny representations of our lives. One day we stumbled across a small art gallery showcasing work by local artists. Jacob seemed hesitant, yet I could see curiosity flickering in his eyes. "I haven't painted since college," he confided as we toured the soft-lit gallery filled with bright colors and both tender and fierce expressions. "Why did you stop?" I asked genuinely. He looked away, lost in thought. "Because I thought it didn't matter. Life got too busy, you know? And I figured I wasn't cut out to be an artist like I used to think." His words hung in the air, caught somewhere between regret and resilience. "Art is a piece of you, Jacob. It doesn't just vanish because life gets busy. Maybe it's time to let it breathe again." He considered my words with a thoughtful nod, dipping into that secretive pool of vulnerability. "You might be right. I could try." That single moment felt like a push towards reclaiming lost parts of himself, and I felt impossibly proud. The promise of our evolving relationship no longer felt like a delicate thread. It was a sturdy rope woven with history, laughter, and light, something we could hold onto tightly as we navigated the landscape of life together. With each passing week, winter began to thaw, and spring emerged slowly, draping itself across the neighborhood like a soft blanket. Together, Jacob and I drifted through coffee shops and art fairs, playing a balancing act that swung between heavy conversations about grief and sweet repose punctuated with laughter. Each lunch became less about carved regret and more about fanning the flickering flames of connection. One day, Jacob surprised me while setting up the living room. "What if we take that old guitar you have? We could jam out." My heart fluttered with uncertainty, but the thought of tapping into music we once shared was too tantalizing to resist. Picking up the instrument, I cradled it in my lap, feeling the ghost of its strings against my fingertips. I played a few bars, hesitant at first, scattering notes across the room like fallen leaves. Jacob hesitated, watching, and then chimed in with the melody. In that moment, surrounded by the changing seasons and the cautious warmth blooming between us, a tangible emotion wove through the air. Each strum and chord danced around the echoes of loss, allowing a new song to emerge, one that resonated with shared vulnerability, courage, and the promise of possibility ahead. I couldn't say where the future would take our relationship. As parents and children often are, it was a tapestry sewn with imperfections. But what I uncovered was a bittersweet beauty that rippled through my heart. Change is seldom easy, but sometimes all it takes is one letter, one conversation, or a simple snow globe for that journey back home to begin anew. As the blossoms unfurled and the weather turned warmly hospitable, the weight of our shared journey began to settle into a rhythm of familiarity. The growth we fostered felt fragile but real, each meeting edging us closer to a homecoming of sorts. It was one day in April, a mild afternoon, when Jacob announced he wanted to bring a friend over for lunch, a moment that filled my heart with both excitement and apprehension. His friend, Ashley, arrived punctually, her vibrant energy filling the house in ways I hadn't anticipated. I could see the comfort between them as they exchanged stories of their days, laughter spilling like sunlight across the dining table. Still, the lingering specter of my past failures loomed. I wondered if I was enough for them, if my past decisions would cast shadows on this new, hopeful connection. As we sat down to eat, Ashley engaged me in conversation, effortlessly drawing out Jacob's stories while I prepared the meal. The vibrant chatter brought color back into my home, painting over the dimness that had lingered for so long. With each exchange, I felt more comfortable, yet the memories of our fragmented past with Jacob clawed at the edges of my mind. During lunch, without thinking, I reached for the chicken noodle soup I so often prepared, the one that had once signified comfort and warmth in our home. Just as Jacob took a sip, an awkward silence fell over the table when Ashley mentioned a cooking class she was enrolled in. "What do you cook, Jacob?" Ashley's question hung in the air, glancing over at me, perhaps sensing the heaviness of our shared history. Jacob hesitated, his gaze shifting softly. "Not much. My dad's the one who usually handles the kitchen." In that simple admission, the veils of past resentment resurfaced. I caught the flicker of disappointment in his eyes, and I could see the ripple of vulnerability on his face. I wanted to defend this moment, to assure him that he was so much more than my failures. He was living proof of resilience. "Learning can start at any age," I offered, my voice steady, eyes meeting Jacob's. "I'd be more than happy to explore some cooking together. We could experiment." The friendliness of our lunch interacted with the subtle turmoil beneath the surface. Jacob's smile softened, and after a thoughtful pause, Ashley jumped in. "I'd love to see that. Cooking can be therapeutic, you know?" Jacob nodded, his attention shifting back to our interaction, and suddenly it felt like we were reclaiming a part of ourselves lost along the way. "Yeah, that sounds great, actually. Maybe we could plan a culinary adventure next weekend." "Absolutely," I replied, exuberance sparking in my chest. "I can dig out some old recipes we can work on. I think I have that cookbook we both liked as kids." Later that afternoon, as we wrapped up the lunch and Ashley prepared to head out, I thanked her, silently reflecting on the unexpected warmth she had brought. Jacob walked her to the door, and I could see an easy rhythm between them, a friendship evolving naturally under the sunlit sky, which reminded me of the warmth I'd lost and desperately missed. As Jacob returned, our eyes met, and in that brief moment, I saw a sense of renewed purpose in him. We exchanged a meaningful glance, unspoken words bridging the small gaps that remained, as layers of hurt began to peel away. With the arrival of spring came the tantalizing smell of earth awakening, and I dedicated myself to nurturing the blossoming relationship with Jacob. Our weekly lunches morphed into cooking sessions, filled with trials and errors, flour-covered countertops, and the laughter that reminded us of the joy we had lost. Jacob was a natural, his confidence brewing as he experimented under my direction. We tried various meals, from stir-fry to classic Italian dishes, layering flavors and stories atop each other. We would talk for hours, with Jacob occasionally catching himself on tender memories, but each time he veered towards heavy emotions, I felt him pivot towards hope. It was an afternoon during a stir-fry when he brought up the idea of attending a local art exhibit opening the following weekend. "You should come with me," he said, biting into a green pepper. "I haven't been to one in a while, and it's going to feature some old friends from my art classes." A stir of excitement stirred within me. "Of course, I'd love to support you and get to see the work you've been inspired by." The days leading up to the exhibit held a buzz of nervous anticipation. I found myself replaying memories of our past, paralleled with the strong connection we were starting to reforge. It was then that I reflected on how this newfound relationship was also nudging me to face my fears. I felt the need to be more open about my own life with him. Where there was silence before, now there was the undeniable promise of shared experiences. The evening of the art exhibit arrived, and the atmosphere pulsating with energy as people mingled, admiring the bright canvases that danced from vibrant strokes to softer pastels. Jacob was nervous. I could see it in the way he fiddled with his hands. "You think they'll like my work?" he asked, fidgeting with the collar of his shirt. "Art is connected to the soul, Jacob," I replied. "It's subjective. What's important is how it makes you feel. Just remember that." He took a deep breath and nodded, appearing to take solace in my words. We moved deeper into the gallery, and I bore witness to the array of emotions playing across Jacob's face as he interacted with fellow artists and friends. Slowly but surely, I could see fragments of his past self breaking the surface, the vulnerability meeting acceptance, and hope felt palpable. As the evening drew on, he stepped away to talk to Ashley, giving me space to wander through the art that, like him, spoke of lost experiences and newfound resilience. I marveled at the works, one depicting a winter wonderland that mirrored our earlier conversations of struggle, but edging into a spring where life re-emerged under warm sunbeams. It was beautiful, raw, a reflection of journeys marked by adversity but ending with growth. Eventually, Jacob returned, his eyes alight with passion as he directed my gaze toward a vibrant piece he had contributed. "What do you think?" he asked, a hint of shy eagerness in his voice. Before me was a canvas that danced with colors, swirling landscapes of dreams and symbolism. In that moment, I felt tears prick my eyes. It was more than art. It was an expression of our relationship, layered with pain but emerging in the optimistic hues of renewal. "It's incredible," I whispered, emotions flowing. "It speaks volumes. I can see your heart in it." Walking beside Jacob, I suddenly realized we had come full circle in so many ways. The bridges of our past, although lined with memories of disruption and regret, were now threaded with healing and hope, moving forward beneath the hues of the future. We lingered among the lively atmosphere until the exhibit began to wind down, an experience full of warmth, connection, and milestones achieved. As we stepped onto the street gold with evening light, Jacob turned to me. "Thanks for coming tonight, really. I wouldn't have missed it for the world," I replied, a smile breaking through. "Let's keep creating moments like these." "I'd like that," he said, and as we walked together into a new horizon, I felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude, a bittersweet acknowledgement of the path we had forged together and the bright future stretching out before us. As summer emerged, draping our suburban neighborhood in warmth, it mirrored the blossoming of my relationship with Jacob. What had once felt like fractured glass, ready to shatter under the slightest touch, became a canvas of vibrant colors, blended with hues of understanding and compassion. Traces of our shared past laced through our conversations now, whispered through laughter and introspective sighs. One afternoon, while sauntering through the local botanical garden, I felt compelled to speak about an idea that had been sprouting in my mind. Jacob was examining a delicate flower, his silhouette bespeaking a quiet intimacy with nature. The gardens were alive with lush greenery, symbols of resurgence, a perfect backdrop for what I wanted to convey. "Jacob," I began, gathering courage, "I think we should consider going on a trip together. Just the two of us. A chance to explore and breathe without the weight of the past following us. What do you think?" He turned, a curious expression brightening his features. "Like a father-son adventure?" The warmth in his voice resonated like the sun breaking through clouds. "Exactly," I replied, feeling a rush of exhilaration. "We could go camping, maybe hit the trails or find a cabin. Just some time to reconnect, away from the distractions of daily life." He pondered, glancing toward the blooming cherry trees as if searching the branches for clarity. That sounds amazing, Dad. I could use a break from everything. Let's do it. We spent the following weeks planning our escape into nature, a blend of excitement and nervous energy vibrating through our interactions. It felt like we were preparing for an expedition of not just distance, but also emotional intertwining. A journey where we could leave the ambiguity of our past behind and carve out new memories amidst the tranquility of the woods. The day finally arrived. As we piled our camping gear into the car, leaving behind the structure of our lives for the unpredictability of nature. As we drove, winding roads dotted with trees painted bright greens and every shade of blue, anticipation hummed between us. This felt like the beginning of something profoundly hopeful, a stepping stone to actually reclaiming our connection. Upon reaching the camp, nestled beside a serene lake, the world unfolded before us in magnificent silence, interrupted only by the calls of nature. Setting up the tent felt like a metaphor for our journey, unknown, uneasy, but rewarding after every attempt. The air was crisp with the scent of pine, reminiscent of a different world, far from the burdens we carried. That evening, under the canopy of stars, we prepared a simple meal over a crackling fire. As the flames danced, Jacob's laughter rang out, spontaneous and infectious, igniting something deep within me. We shared stories of our lives, indulging in moments where vulnerability felt safe, alight with the warmth of the fire. Remember the time we tried to build that treehouse? I chuckled, an old shared memory bubbling to the surface. His eyes sparkled mischievously. You mean the time we ended up with a pile of wood and a dream? Exactly, I laughed, recounting the total disaster, but how, even in disappointment, we forged one of our favorite family moments. The smiles interlaced with old grief felt lighter in those moments. The stars above us twinkled shyly, as if witnessing our newfound liberation from the confines of years gone by. It was in these exchanges that I realized how far we had come, how deeply we had begun to understand each other. As the sun began to rise on our last day in the wild, the atmosphere was heavy with both melancholy and gratitude. Jacob and I sat at the lakeside, sipping coffee in the cool morning air, the golden light shimmering on the water's surface. I wish we could stay here forever, Jacob admitted, casting a contemplative glance at the horizon. It feels different, like things are changing. They are, I said gently, my heart swelling with emotion. We've taken steps towards something better. This connection we have now, it could be a foundation for everything we build moving forward. He looked at me, and for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of the boy I once knew, entwined with the man he had become. I think I'm ready for that, to really take that step. I nodded, overwhelmed with emotion. Me too. After packing up our campsite, we embarked on a hike, the tall trees becoming witnesses to our unfolding bond. Each step forward felt weighted, signifying not just the physical journey, but also the emotional one we had traversed together. The chirping of birds accompanied our path, celebrating the sounds of healing and harmony. When we returned to the car, filled with gear and memories, Jacob smiled at me, a real smile, devoid of the guardedness that once surrounded our interactions. Can we do this again? Not just on trips, but in daily life? He asked softly. Absolutely, I replied. Let's make it a promise. We can build on this, together. As we drove homeward, silence enveloped the cabin of our car. It was a comfortable silence laced with an unspoken understanding that our relationship was evolving. The weight of years lost was still present but lightened, creating new spaces for laughter and openness. In that journey back, I realized then that while the past would always be a part of us, it didn't have to dictate our future. We were beginning anew, crafting not just a story but a life, together, tenderly and intentionally. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, illuminating the world one last time, hope danced through the age-old branches, beckoning us toward a brighter tomorrow. As the summer days waned, the neighborhood around us transformed in a similar fashion, preparing for the brisk embrace of autumn. Leaves began to burn bright with hues of red and gold, scattering across the streets, molding the familiar landscape into something vibrant yet fleeting, similar to the elation swelling in my heart. Jacob and I had been actively nurturing our relationship, stitching together moments of connection that we had longed for but couldn't discover until now. After returning from our camping adventure, life returned to its usual rhythm, yet it felt different. Now, the air held possibilities rather than memories of estrangement. Our weekly cooking sessions turned into evenings filled with spirited debates over ingredients and impromptu karaoke alongside the bubbling pots simmering on the stove. I found myself looking forward to these moments, once filled with silence, now infused with laughter and excitement. One chilly Friday evening, while chopping fresh garlic for an Italian dish, Jacob peeked into the kitchen, his face lit with determination. "Hey, I've been thinking," he said, shifting nervously. "We should do something special for Mom's birthday. Maybe we can plan a surprise dinner." His eyes held a mixture of hope and apprehension, blending seamlessly with the autumnal colors spilling in through the kitchen window. I hesitated, my heart heavy at the thought of her absence. And yet, I nodded in agreement. That would mean a lot, but we'll need to make it perfect. I could sense a growing enthusiasm between us, accentuating the bond we had been building. We fell into a routine of planning, mapping out a menu that featured all her favorites, and I discovered that collaborating on something that would show her love still felt within our reach, albeit stitched with delicate threads of nostalgia. Our discussions ventured beyond culinary choices. They pushed us to explore the myriad ways we could honor her memory, blending pieces of our past with the present. As the big day approached, the house transformed into a flurry of activity. We decorated the dining table, selecting candles, though I wondered if the flickering flames could truly replicate the warmth that her presence once radiated. Yet, there was something exhilarating about the process. Our conversations continuously flowed, sketches of memories mingling with newfound understanding. The evenings spent in the kitchen blurred together, laughter rising from our experimentations, knitting us tighter, each culinary disaster morphing into an inside joke. I watched as Jacob embraced the rhythm of cooking, unfurling new layers of confidence. He even began to share his thoughts about life, revealing pieces of his world previously hidden under layers of uncertainty. "Do you ever think about moving away, Dad?" he asked one evening, arranging fresh basil over a batch of homemade lasagna. "Like, starting fresh somewhere can feel a lot less complicated." His observation hung in the air, much like the sense of roasted garlic. I took a moment, processing his words. In some ways, I did think of it. After everything that's happened, sometimes leaving does feel tempting. But lately, I've realized that home isn't just constructed by bricks and walls. It's shaped by the people who fill those spaces with love and memories. He nodded, processing. That makes sense. It can't always be about running away. Sometimes, it means staying and growing. At that moment, I felt a wave of pride washing over me. The glimmer of potential reflected in Jacob's words mirrored my own hopeful outlook. We both had room to evolve, to embrace change, finding strength not necessarily in running away, but in forging a positive path right where we stood. The night of Mom's birthday arrived, and the ambient glow of candlelight filled the dining room. As the food piled high on the table, a labor of love from both of us, the lingering ache for her presence felt both profound and bittersweet. I glanced at Jacob, whose face was painted with a serene determination. He seemed to echo my sentiments. As we lightened the atmosphere with lighthearted banter, the meal blossomed into a celebration honoring not just her presence, but our evolving relationship as well. Jacob raised his glass, filled with sparkling cider, toasting to memories. "To Mom," he said, his voice steady. "And to us, for stepping up and changing together." I echoed his sentiment, pride swelling within me. To newfound connections and the bond we're rebuilding. Together, we shared stories of days gone by, punctuated with laughter and fond memories, a synthesis of our past woven together comfortably with the present. Bit by bit, the unspoken weight of years lost felt lighter, forging a new chapter. As the evening waned and remnants of joy filled the air, I caught Jacob's eye, a reassuring glance filled with understanding. I realized that while the journey ahead would undoubtedly unfold its challenges, we were no longer fragile. Instead, we had become resilient. In light of so much growth, it felt as if every shared laugh and tear held significance, reminding us both that while we carried the ghosts of our previous lives, we also possessed the strength to transcend that darkness together. The bonds between parent and child may face trials, but they can always adapt, transform, and ultimately flourish anew, resonating with the unwavering promise of love. In the heart of that quiet suburban neighborhood, beneath the whispers of autumn leaves cascading through the brisk night air, we stood unyielding, two souls, once distant, now interwoven by the threads of shared stories, transformed by our journey. We weren't just reclaiming what had been lost. We were moving forward into a vibrant tapestry of connection built on love, acceptance, and the beauty of second chances.